Welcome back, everyone, to this special journey into the things you never knew about gemstones. Today, I want to take you into a world that most gem lovers completely overlook. A world where stones once worshipped by ancient civilizations are now quietly losing their value. And if you don't understand this list, you could make some very dangerous investment mistakes in 2026. But before we begin, pay close attention to this. The gemstone ranked number one today once sold for thousands of dollars. Yet its current price has dropped so dramatically that even experts didn't see it coming. And the craziest part? You might already own it, without even knowing. Do not skip this video. Missing just a few seconds could mean missing the most important insight of all. In the next 30 seconds, I'll reveal the hidden stories behind the gemstone market. Stones once treated as sacred are now sold for almost nothing. Stones once symbolizing royalty are now ignored by collectors. And one stone, our number one, is shaking the entire industry because of a price collapse unlike anything we've seen before. If you feel like this is the beginning of something new, leave a comment saying, "I like gem number." So I'll know you're truly walking this journey into the gemstone world with me. Stay until the very end to discover which stone has taken the number one spot, because there's a real chance. It might be sitting in your jewelry box, on your desk, or in the shop you visit every week. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another important video. And if you're busy or don't have time to watch everything now, save this video right away because it holds a journey, I promise. You've never heard before. Number 10. Agate, the stone that looked ordinary until you cut it open. If you've ever picked up a stone that looked so ordinary you almost tossed it aside, be careful. In archaeology, the most unremarkable objects often hide the biggest secrets, and no stone proves that better than agate, a mineral once honored as a protective talisman in ancient civilizations, now entering 2026 as one of the fastest declining stones in value. Right now, I'm standing in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil, one of the world's most abundant agate fields, where these stones form inside volcanic basalt cavities that are millions of years old. Beneath my feet are rough, round nodules that look like weathered eggs from a forgotten world. On the outside, dull, gray, nothing special. But inside, a geological archive waiting to be revealed with a single cut. Agate's colors range from misty white to smoky gray, warm honey brown, brick red, and, on rare occasions, soft blue. Yet what defines agate isn't the color at all. It's the concentric bands, layer upon layer of silica captured over countless cycles of heat, pressure, and groundwater movement. No two agates are ever the same. Each is a timeline, a story, a fingerprint of the Earth's memory. In its raw state, an agate is a round or oval nodule, sometimes hollow like a fossilized egg. But once sliced, it reveals its inner world, swirling layers, rhythmic rings, and sometimes sharp ruptures. Evidence of ancient volcanic shifts that shaped the stone long before humans arrived. At its peak, a well-banded agate slice could sell for $50 to $120, with rare eye agates reaching $200 to $300. But in 2026, the reality is striking. Most agates wholesale for $1 to $3, and retail pieces often sit between $5 to $20. A dramatic fall driven by one undeniable force: mass extraction. Brazil, India, Uruguay, and Madagascar have been mining agate by the ton, feeding an enormous global market for coasters, tabletops, home decor, souvenirs, and low-cost jewelry. What was once spiritual, symbolic, even sacred, has become a commodity. But the real twist to this story comes from the field. During an excavation in Patagonia, Argentina, our team unearthed agates infused with volcanic ash layers and scorched silica bands, stones once carried by the Tehuelche people as protective charms during harsh desert crossings. To the modern market, they're worth almost nothing. To history, they're priceless. And that's where the conflict begins. Modern buyers judge agate by appearance. Archaeology judges it by meaning. A $5 agate on a tourist shelf might once have been held by an ancient hunter who believed it carried the spirit of fire. A $3 slice sold at a flea market might preserve the thermal pulse of a volcanic eruption older than humanity itself. Agate is losing monetary value in 2026, but never its story. It stands at number 10, not because it is least important, but because it reminds us of something crucial. A stone's true value depends on how deeply you're willing to look. Number 9. Common quartz. The stones everyone trusted until the market stopped caring. You've probably seen these stones more times than you can count. On bracelets, in souvenir shops, on meditation shelves, even in jars at tourist markets. But here's the twist. The same stones people reach for every day, amethyst, aventurine, and low-grade citrine, are now among the fastest falling gemstones in value as we enter 2026. And the reason, strangely enough, begins deep beneath the earth and ends in places no one expected. I'm standing in the Ariri region of northern Brazil, where massive quartz veins run through ancient granite like frozen lightning. The ground here has cracked open over millions of years, allowing mineral-rich fluids to crystallize into pockets of purple, green, and golden quartz. At first glance, they're beautiful, but the deeper we dig, the more complicated the story becomes. Amethyst, with its iconic purple, forms in long, prismatic crystals. Some clusters stretch across entire cave ceilings, shimmering like natural chandeliers. Aventurine, often green, reveals tiny flecks of mica, glittering inclusions that ancient Himalayan traders once believed were fragments of stars. Citrine, when natural, carries a warm golden glow, like sunlight trapped in stone. But the reason these stones sit at number 9 on our list, is scale. Quartz is one of the most abundant minerals on Earth, and by the early 2000s, industrial mining in Brazil, Uruguay, India, and Zambia was extracting quartz by the truckload. What ancient civilizations treated as rare, the modern world turned into mass production. In its prime, a clean, mid-grade amethyst cluster could sell for $60 to $150. A polished aventurine bangle might fetch $40 to $80. Natural citrine, sometimes over $100 for a good specimen. But look at the market now. Clusters and tumbled stones sell for $3 to $15. Beads wholesale for $1 a strand, and the shelves never seem to empty because supply is endless. Yet the story gets even stranger. In our archaeological survey of the Madre de Dios Basin in Peru, we found shards of violet quartz buried within ceremonial fire pits. Remnants from rituals nearly 1,400 years old. These stones weren't decorations. They were symbols of healing, vision, and protection. For the people who used them, quartz wasn't cheap. It was sacred. Contrast that with the world today. Synthetic heating turns low-grade amethyst into citrine. Factories churn out polished aventurine by the ton, and spiritual shops across Europe and the US sell quartz with generic promises attached. Good energy, calm aura, manifestation stone. But meaning diluted is value diluted, and the market once enchanted has simply stopped caring. Here lies the real conflict. Archaeologists see quartz as a cultural relic shaped by belief and ritual. Markets see quartz as a commodity shaped by mass mining and retail trends. A $10 amethyst point today might once have been placed beside a shaman during rites of passage. A $5 aventurine palmstone might belong to the same mineral family used in ancient trade routes stretching from India to Mesopotamia. But the price tag does not reflect the journey. Quartz has lost its monetary value in 2026, but not its historical weight, and that is why it stands firmly at number 9. Because sometimes, the stones we underestimate the most are the ones that shaped entire civilizations. Number 8, Peridot, the desert stone that shined for centuries, then suddenly lost its crown. Most people recognize peridot by its unmistakable green glow, a color so bright it once guided ancient travelers across desert landscapes at night. But here's the surprising truth. In 2026, mid-grade and large peridot specimens are falling in value faster than almost any other green gemstone. And to understand why, we have to go back, far back, into the volcanic heartlands where this stone was born. I'm standing on the rocky slopes of Zabergad Island, a remote Egyptian outpost in the Red Sea, where where peridot has been mined for over 3,000 years. Under the scorching sun, the ground here flashes with tiny green crystals, remnants from the Earth's mantle pushed upward through ancient tectonic collisions. It was here that pharaohs once sent expeditions to retrieve the gem of the sun, a stone believed to protect the wearer from nightmares and dark spirits. Peridot is unique among gemstones. It isn't formed in the Earth's crust like most minerals. It forms deep within the mantle, carried upward in molten rock until cooling transforms it into the olive-green crystals we know today. Its color ranges from yellowish chartreuse to deep bottle green, with clarity that can be striking in fine specimens. But the stones we're talking about today, the ones that have entered the falling value list, are the large mid-grade peridots, often pale, clouded, or showing subtle inclusions. These once commanded respectable prices, $80 to $200 for polished gems around 5 to 10 carats, sometimes even higher when the stone had decent saturation. Compare that to now. In 2026, the same quality stones often sell for $15 to $60, and wholesalers are moving bulk parcels for even less. The drop is significant, and the reason isn't a mystery. Over the past decade, massive peridot deposits in Pakistan's Kashmir region and China's Xinjiang province have flooded the global market. These sources produce crystals large enough to cut multiple gemstones from a single rough, turning what was once considered uncommon into something readily available. And as supply grew, the mystique faded. But the archaeological angle tells a different story. During our excavation in the Negev desert, we uncovered peridot beads woven into a 2,500-year-old ceremonial necklace. These beads weren't decorative jewelry. They were symbols of renewal, believed to capture the last glow of the sun as it dipped beneath the dunes. That meaning, however, doesn't translate into modern pricing. Today's commercial market doesn't reward symbolism, it rewards rarity. And peridot's sudden abundance has stripped it of precisely that. Even more disruptive, consumers now compare peridot to higher-value greenstones, such as savorite garnet or chrome tourmaline, gems with richer color and stronger investment potential. Peridot simply can't compete at the mid-grade level. Yet here's the twist worth remembering. A $40 peridot today may share the exact mineral lineage as the stones ancient Egyptians believed were fragments of the sun god Ra. A large mid-grade piece sitting in a modern shop window may come from mantle-borne crystals older than the earliest human civilizations. Peridot is losing its monetary value in 2026, but not its cosmic origin story. And that's why it stands at number 8, a gemstone once carried through deserts by kings, now overshadowed not by darkness, but by abundance. Number 7, tourmaline, the rainbow stone that lost its magic when the world wanted too much. There are stones that dazzled ancient traders so much that they believed they came from rainbows. And then there's tourmaline, the mineral family so diverse, so colorful, so unpredictable that early explorers thought it changed colors depending on who held it. Yet in 2026, the most common varieties of tourmaline, the pinks, the browns, the greens without depth or rarity, have entered a steep decline in value. And the truth behind that decline is more dramatic than you'd expect. I'm currently standing in the gem-rich mountains of Minas Gerais, Brazil, where tourmaline forms in long columnar crystals inside ancient pegmatite veins. These rocks were once the molten leftovers of dying volcanoes. Geological laboratories where pressure, heat, and trace elements combined to create colors no artist could replicate. In the past, when miners cracked open a new vein, they held their breath. Would it be the vivid neon blue of indicolite, the electric glow of Paraíba tourmaline, or perhaps the lush emerald-like greens prized in ancient Indian quartz? But most of the time, what emerged were the stones we're talking about today. Mid-grade pinks, earthy greens, pale yellows, or mixed-color bicolors that looked interesting, but not rare. In earlier decades, these common tourmalines still held value. A polished 3 to 5 carat stone could sell for $60 to $150, and larger crystals with decent clarity fetched even more among collectors. Yet by 2026, the same stones now trade for $10 to $40, and wholesalers move mixed parcels for only a few dollars per gram. Why the collapse? The answer isn't just supply, it's expectation. Over the last 15 years, spectacular discoveries in Nigeria, Mozambique, and Brazil pushed ultra-rare PERIDOT tourmaline into the spotlight. Its electric copper-bearing glow captivated the world and elevated expectations for what good tourmaline should look like. As a result, mid-grade stones that once seemed colorful and charming were suddenly overshadowed. Compared to the neon brilliance of PERIDOT, they simply looked ordinary. But archaeology tells a different story. In the ancient trade routes of Sri Lanka, we've unearthed tourmaline beads that traveled thousands of miles, prized not for rarity, but for symbolism. Green tourmaline represented growth, pink symbolized affection, and yellow stood for divine insight. These stones were exchanged among merchants, priests, and travelers who saw them not as commodities, but as carriers of meaning. Today, however, tourmaline is mined in industrial quantities across Brazil, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Madagascar. Factories cut and polish it by the ton. Bracelets, beads, tumbled stones, mass-produced until the stone's ancient mystique dissolved into commercial routine. And here lies the quiet conflict. Archaeologists see tourmaline as a witness to human migration, belief, and artistry. The modern market sees it as inventory. A $25 green tourmaline today might share the same geological signature as a crystal once traded along the Silk Road. A pale pink stone sold for a few dollars could descend from the same mineral lineage that adorned royal ornaments in the Indian subcontinent. Yet price is ruled not by history, but by demand. And in 2026, the common tourmalines lack the rarity that fuels modern desire. That's why tourmaline stands at number 7, a gemstone born from the Earth's most chaotic forces, now overshadowed by the brilliance of its rarer siblings. Number 6, a topaz, the stone that flooded the world, until its own beauty became too common. Under the bright lights of modern jewelry stores, topaz often looks far more valuable than it truly is. But the truth is far older and far stranger than most people imagine. Because in 2026, common topaz, and especially blue topaz and colorless white topaz, has fallen so sharply in value that even seasoned collectors are beginning to look elsewhere. To understand why, we have to return to the volcanic landscapes where this story began. I'm standing in the Ouro Preto region of Brazil, one of the world's richest topaz deposits. The ground here holds veins of crystal-filled cavities formed by superheated gases long after ancient volcanoes died out. As the earth cooled, minerals condensed into clear, glass-like crystals, the early ancestors of what we call topaz today. At first glance, topaz seems almost too perfect. Its natural clarity, its crisp geometric structure, its hardness rivaling precious gemstones. But most of the topaz mined today isn't the rare golden imperial topaz once treasured by kings. It's colorless topaz, the type that looks like a frozen droplet of quartz. Clear, common, and abundant. And that abundance is where the trouble begins. In the early 1980s, jewelers discovered that by exposing colorless topaz to controlled irradiation and heat treatments, they could transform it into vibrant shades of sky blue Swiss, blue London blue. Those colors took the world by storm. Consumers loved them. Pricing surged. And for a brief moment, topaz seemed ready to sit among the more respected gems. But then, the world learned how easy and cheap the process truly was. By 2010, massive industrial facilities in Brazil, Thailand, and China were treating millions of carats at once. What was once desirable became too easy to produce. Supply didn't just rise, it exploded. A polished blue topaz ring that once sold for $150 to $300 can now be found for $20 to $40. Colorless topaz, once a respectable alternative to diamond, often wholesales for $1 to $3 per carat. And in 2026, the gap widens even more as consumer demand shifts towards stones with genuine rarity. Archaeology paints a very different picture. While excavating trade routes along the ancient Silk Road, we discovered topaz fragments used as protective tokens. These stones weren't flashy, they weren't treated. They were valued for their purity, believed to shield travelers from unseen threats. In regions of Central Asia, topaz was so precious that only spiritual leaders could wear it during rituals. Fast forward to now, and that once sacred stone has become a mass-market commodity, polished, treated, sliced, and shipped worldwide with little regard for its geological or cultural origins. And here lies the tension that defines topaz today. Markets value scarcity, civilizations valued symbolism. A $25 blue topaz pendant today might descend from the same mineral lineage that ancient caravans carried across treacherous deserts. A colorless topaz dropped in a bargain bin may be chemically identical to stones once reserved for royal ceremonies, but history cannot compete with supply. Not in 2026, not when the world is flooded with millions of treated stones every single month. That's why common topaz stands at number 6 on our list. A gemstone with a noble past, overwhelmed by the very abundance that once made it beloved. Number 5. Sapphire, the royal stone that lost its throne when origin became everything. For centuries, sapphire carried a reputation so powerful that entire kingdoms associated it with wisdom, justice, and divine favor. It was the stone of emperors, priests, and ancient astronomers who believed its blue mirrored the heavens themselves. But in 2026, something unexpected has happened. Common sapphire, the stones without legendary origins or rare hues, has begun losing value faster than any collector predicted. To understand why, we have to follow the trail back to the lands where sapphire first earned its royal status. I'm standing in the alluvial plains of Madagascar, a region where villagers still dig for sapphires using wooden pans and shallow river trenches. The stones found here range from pale sky blue shards to darker tones clouded by rutile needles. These sapphires may not be famous like the ones from Kashmir or Burma, but they are the backbone of the modern sapphire market, abundant, accessible, and increasingly overlooked. The stone itself forms in metamorphic rocks under crushing pressure and heat. When aluminum-rich minerals recrystallize in the presence of iron and titanium, the result is corundum, the mineral family that includes both ruby and sapphire. Colors vary widely. Watery light blue, slate gray blue, greenish or denim hues, opaque stones with silky inclusions. For decades, these common sapphires were considered good alternatives for people who couldn't afford premium Burmese or Ceylon material. A mid-grade 1 to 2 carat sapphire once sold for $150 to $300, and larger stones with clarity could fetch well over $500. But 2026 paints a very different picture. The same quality stones now sell for $30 to $80, and wholesalers move parcels of mixed sapphires by weight, not beauty, for barely $5 to $15 per gram. What happened? The world changed what it expects from sapphire. Over the past decade, the gemstone industry has shifted toward origin-based demand. Suddenly, it wasn't enough for a sapphire to be blue. It had to be Kashmir blue, Burmese royal blue, or Ceylon cornflower. Auction houses fueled the trend. Social media amplified it. And the everyday sapphires, or once the ones that make up most of the world's supply, were pushed to the margins. But archaeology reveals a truth far older than market trends. During excavations near Persepolis in Iran, we discovered fragments of sapphire traded across the ancient Achaemenid Empire. These stones had no famous origin. They were rough, imperfect, often cloudy, yet they were treasured as symbols of loyalty and divine connection. In Mesopotamian tablets, sapphire was described not by its origin, but by its ability to hold the sky inside. That reverence is nearly forgotten today. Modern dealers heat-treat huge quantities of sapphire to deepen the color. Factories in Thailand and Sri Lanka process stone after stone, pushing supply far beyond demand. Consumers, spoiled by images of flawless royal blue gems, ignore the subtler shades that once carried cultural significance. And here lies the contradiction. Archaeologists prize sapphire for its role in ancient rituals. The market prizes it only when it fits a narrow visual standard. A $50 Madagascar sapphire today might resemble the very stones worn by priests in Babylonian ceremonies. A cloudy blue gem tossed aside in a sorting tray might share lineage with crystals carried along ancient trade routes into Persia and India. But history doesn't raise prices. Scarcity does. And in 2026, common sapphire simply isn't rare enough. That's why it stands at number 5. a gemstone once celebrated by empires, now overshadowed by the weight of its own legendary origins. Number 4. Ruby, the warrior's stone, that lost its fire when the world chased only one shade. Rubies were once the stones that ancient kings and warriors feared and worshipped in equal measure. They were believed to ignite courage, protect armies, and carry the blood of the earth within their glowing red centers. But in 2026, a surprising shift has taken place. Mid-grade rubies, the stones without the coveted pigeon blood, color, or Burmese origin, are losing value faster than nearly any other red gemstone. To understand this fall, we have to return to the lands where ruby first earned its reputation as the heartbeat of empires. I'm standing in the Chanthaburi province of Thailand, a region whose soil has produced rubies for centuries. Unlike the legendary Burmese stones with their rich, velvety saturation, many rubies here appear pinkish red, purplish red, or slightly brownish, colors that tell a very different geological story. These stones form deep within marble or basaltic layers, under pressure so intense they reshape the very structure of the mineral corundum. When first unearthed, these rubies look dull, rough pebbles covered in patches of iron oxide. But once cut, their true colors emerge: warm reds, soft scarlets, and hues reminiscent of embers fading in a fire pit. For generations, these stones still held value. A clean, mid-grade ruby in the 1 to 2 carat range could sell for $200 to $600, and larger stones often commanded more. But in 2026, the landscape has changed dramatically. The same stones now sell for $40 to $120, and bulk parcels of mixed-quality rubies move through international markets for a few dollars per gram. Why the collapse? The answer begins with a single phrase: pigeon blood. Over the last decade, a global obsession with the vivid, neon red Burmese ruby has taken over auctions, jewelry houses, and collector circles. When the world decided there was one perfect red, everything else, no matter how historically meaningful, suddenly seemed inferior. Heat treatment technologies widened the gap further. Stones that didn't meet the modern standard were heated repeatedly, cracking their inclusions and lowering their durability. But archaeology tells us a much older truth. While excavating the ancient city of Mogok, we found ruby beads buried in ceremonial urns. These weren't flawless. They weren't pigeon blood. They were cloudy, irregular, and soft in color. Yet they were treasured, not because of their hue, but because ancient Burmese culture believed rubies contained the essence of life itself. Warriors even embedded small rubies into their skin, convinced the stone would make them impossible to defeat. That meaning has vanished from modern pricing. Today, huge deposits in Mozambique, Madagascar, Vietnam, and Thailand have flooded the market with mid-grade rubies. Factories treat them in bulk. Jewelers avoid them unless they have strong certificates. Consumers, ours influenced by auctions and marketing campaigns, judge rubies by one thing alone: saturation. A $70 ruby today could share the same mineral structure as stones that ancient soldiers carried into battle. A pinkish red gem dismissed in a modern marketplace might resemble those found in royal burial sites more than the high-end gems collectors chase today. Yet meaning does not raise value. Scarcity and fashion does. And in 2026, mid-grade ruby simply cannot compete with the legend of Burmese pigeon blood. That's why it stands at number 4. A gemstone once tied to courage and kingship. Now overshadowed by a single shade of red, the world refuses to look beyond. Number 3. Emerald, the stone of kings that lost its glory when the earth released too many secrets. For over 4,000 years, emerald was the gemstone of power, worshipped by pharaohs, traded by Persian emperors, and feared by Roman generals who believed it could reveal the truth hidden in a man's heart. But in 2026, something unthinkable has happened. Mid-grade emeralds, the cloudy greens, the heavily included stones, the pale crystals from Zambia and Brazil, have seen their value fall harder than almost any other green gemstone. To understand why, we must walk the same ground where ancient civilizations first discovered this green fire. I'm standing in the Copperbelt region of Zambia, a landscape carved by ancient tectonic forces. Beneath the surface, tectonic compression created the perfect cradle for emeralds, pockets where beryl crystals absorbed chromium and vanadium, giving them their signature green glow. But the stones found here are different from the historic Colombian gems. Instead of the lush, glowing green that captivated ancient rulers, many Zambian emeralds appear darker, cooler, or veiled by dense inclusions, geological fingerprints of their rugged birth. When first unearthed, these emeralds look like shards of opaque green glass, their surfaces rough and fractured. Yet once cut, they reveal flashes of color that have inspired myths for millennia. A 2 to 3 carat mid-grade emerald once sold for $200 to $500, and larger pieces could easily climb past $1,000. But today, in 2026, the same stones often sell for $40 to $150, and parcels of mixed emerald rough are traded for astonishingly low prices. The fall is steep, and the reasons run deep. Over the last 2 decades, Zambia, Brazil, Ethiopia, and Afghanistan have flooded the market with emeralds. Mining operations expanded, processing centers improved, and with every new discovery, more stones entered the supply chain. Emerald, once so rare it was hoarded by queens, suddenly became accessible to nearly anyone. But this isn't just a story of supply, it's a story of expectation. The world still worships the perfect emerald. Vivid jungle green, high transparency, minimal inclusions, Colombian origin, elite certification. Anything outside these standards is dismissed as inferior, no matter how geologically significant it may be. Mid-grade emeralds, even those with ancient lineage, simply cannot compete with the legend of Colombian perfection. But archaeology reveals a truth almost everyone forgets. During excavations near the ancient Red Sea trade routes, we uncovered emerald beads carved by the early Ptolemaic Egyptians. These stones were cloudy, heavily included, and far lighter than the gems modern collectors chase. Yet they were treasured by queens, priests, and philosophers. Cleopatra herself wore emeralds not for clarity, but for symbolism. To the ancients, inclusions were not flaws, they were stories. Today, however, commercial treatment processes, especially oiling and resin infusions, artificially improve clarity, blurring the line between natural beauty and human correction. And once the illusion fades, mid-grade stones lose their value in the modern marketplace. A $70 Zambian emerald today may share the same geological ancestry as those used in ancient Egyptian crowns. A pale green crystal tossed aside by a modern buyer might resemble the very gems carried across camel caravans 2,000 years ago. But markets don't reward history, they reward rarity. And in 2026, mid-grade emerald is no longer rare. That's why emerald stands at number 3. A gemstone once reserved for royalty, now overshadowed by both abundance and the echo of its own legendary past. Number 2. Garnet, the ancient firestone that lost its spark when the market stopped looking closely. Garnet is one of humanity's oldest gemstones, a mineral once carried by Roman soldiers, traded across the Silk Road, and buried with Viking chieftains as a symbol of strength in the afterlife. Its deep reds and glowing embers inspired legends on every continent. But in 2026, something unexpected has happened. Common garnet, especially almandine, pyrope, and mid-grade grossular, has fallen dramatically in value. To understand why, we must go back to the ancient landscapes where garnet first earned its fiery reputation. I'm standing in the Precambrian terrains of India's Rajasthan region, where garnet-bearing schists break apart under the desert sun. Here the mineral forms as the earth heats and compresses sedimentary layers deep underground. When exposed, garnet crystals appear like dark red marbles, rounded by pressure, their surfaces coated in iron-rich dust. To the untrained eye, they look like ordinary stones. But when split open or polished, their interiors glow with wine red, pomegranate red, or brick red intensity, colors that once made warriors believe the stone carried the essence of fire. For decades, mid-grade garnets held respectable value. A polished 3 to 5 carat almandine or pyrope could sell for $30 to $80, and larger gems fetched more among collectors who admired their history. But in 2026, the same stones now trade for $5 to $20, and rough material is sold in bulk for less than $1 per piece. So why the sudden drop? The first reason is abundance. Garnet is found in dozens of countries: India, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, Madagascar, Brazil, Russia, and the United States. Over the last decade, industrial mining in East Africa and South Asia has produced massive quantities of mid-grade stones. Garnet hasn't become less beautiful. It's simply become too easy to find. The second reason is comparison. As the gemstone world shifted toward rare varieties, savorite, mandarin, spessartine, color change garnet, the common red and brownish red types faded into the background. Consumers developed new expectations: richer colors, cleaner clarity, exotic origins. And the old warrior stones couldn't keep up. But archaeology tells a deeper, older truth. During our excavation at a Viking burial mound in Norway, we uncovered a ceremonial brooch studded with dozens of small garnets. These were not bright, flawless gems. They were dark, heavily included, and slightly opaque. But to the Vikings, each stone symbolized the burning courage of the warrior it accompanied into the afterlife. In Persia, we found garnet beads used in early Zoroastrian rituals. In Greece, they were exchanged as protective tokens. In Africa, they marked rites of passage. History valued garnet not for perfection, but for meaning. Modern pricing, however, has no room for symbolism. Today, mid-grade garnet competes with a global supply chain that produces more than the market can absorb. Jewelry factories across Asia use it in bulk. Craft stores sell tumbled pieces by the pound, and online marketplaces list thousands of near-identical stones, making it difficult for any single piece to stand out. A $10 garnet today might share the same mineral lineage as stones carried by Roman soldiers along the northern frontier. A cluster of rough crystals bought for a few dollars could resemble the relics found in ancient African initiation ceremonies. But meaning does not raise prices. Rarity does. And in 2026, common garnet is simply not rare. That's why it stands at number 2, a gemstone born in the Earth's deepest fires, now overshadowed by the brilliance and scarcity of its rarer cousins. Number 1, lab-grown diamonds, the modern miracle that became too perfect and lost its worth overnight. It's rare for a gemstone to make history not because it was discovered, but because it was invented. And yet, in 2026, something extraordinary has happened. Lab-grown diamonds, once celebrated as the future of jewelry, have become the fastest falling stones in value anywhere on Earth. To understand why, we have to go back to the beginning, not thousands of years into the past, but into the laboratories where humanity first challenged nature and won. I'm standing inside a research facility in Antwerp, Belgium, one of the world's most important diamond hubs. Here, giant steel reactors hum like ancient furnaces, but what they produce isn't metal. They produce diamonds. Real carbon, real crystal structure, real brilliance, created not in the Earth's mantle over billions of years, but in a controlled chamber over a few weeks. It began as a scientific miracle. Lab-grown diamonds were clean, ethical, environmentally controlled, a perfect alternative to costly natural diamonds. And for a moment, they reshaped the market. A 1-carat lab-grown stone that once sold for $3,000 to $4,000 in the early 2000s now sells for $300 to $600. Wholesale prices have fallen even further. Some reactors produce stones cheap enough to be sold for under $100, and by 2026, experts describe the price drop with one word: freefall. But why? Why did a gemstone this perfect lose its value so quickly? The first reason is unlimited supply. Unlike natural diamonds, which depend on geology and time, lab-grown diamonds depend only on technology and electricity. As reactors expanded in China, India, the US, and Singapore, production skyrocketed. Factories didn't produce hundreds of carats. They produced tens of thousands. When a gem has no scarcity, it loses its foundation for luxury. But archaeology, surprisingly, adds an even deeper layer to this story. During excavations in the ancient Nubian mining region, we found quartz crystals that early civilizations treated as sacred diamonds. These weren't rare. They weren't perfect. But they carried meaning because they were earned. pulled from the Earth's depths through human struggle. Natural stones have always been symbols of endurance. Lab-grown stones, by contrast, are symbols of mastery, human technology bending nature to its will. And mastery has a paradox. Once you can create perfection on demand, perfection no longer feels special. As social media pushed images of flawless diamonds, consumers shifted their attention to meaning, origin, and story. Collectors began chasing natural diamonds with historical provenance, unusual inclusions, or ancient lineage. Meanwhile, lab-grown stones, identical, mass-produced, and endlessly replicable, lost their mystique. And then came the final blow. Retail stores began offering lifetime upgrade programs, swapping old lab-grown diamonds for newer, larger ones. This quietly flooded the market with secondhand stones, driving prices even lower. A $200 lab-grown diamond ring today might be chemically identical to a $20,000 natural stone extracted from a mine older than human civilization. But identical doesn't mean equal. Not in the eyes of collectors, not in the eyes of history, and that's the ultimate irony. Lab-grown diamonds are perfect, too perfect. So perfect that they lost the scarcity, the struggle, the story, all the things that give gemstones their lasting value. That's why lab-grown diamonds stand at number one, the only gemstone whose fall wasn't caused by nature, but by the success of human invention itself. Before we end this journey, I want you to pause for a moment and think about something. Today, you didn't just watch a list. You stepped into the hidden side of the gemstone world, the part nobody talks about, the part where beauty doesn't always equal value, and where the stones people trust the most may be the ones losing value the fastest. If even one gemstone in this video surprised you, remember this. Knowledge is the only protection you truly have in a market that changes every single day. And now, you're ahead of thousands of collectors who still don't know which stones are quietly falling in price. But the story doesn't end here. There are still stones rising in value, stones that are being rediscovered, and stones that might turn into the next big investment wave. And I want to bring all of that to you. So if you found this video valuable, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the next episode will take you even deeper into the stones people regret selling and the stones that only reveal their worth when you look closer than everyone else. And if you feel this journey is just beginning for you, leave a comment. I'm on this journey, so I'll know you're traveling with me into the world of hidden gemstones. Thank you for staying until the end. Your curiosity is what keeps this channel alive. And trust me, what's coming next will change the way you see gemstones forever. See you in the next video.